Up in a remote corner of northern Japan, you may come across a grave of a wandering shepherd. And according to local legend, this shepherd settled there in this tiny Japanese village almost 2,000 years ago, to be, of all things, a garlic farmer. He fell in love with a farmer's daughter named Miyuko. He had 3 children and died at the grand old age of 106. In this mountain village called Shingo, this wandering shepherd is known by one name, Daitenku Taro Junrai. But for the rest of the world, he goes by a very different name, and that name is Jesus Christ. Local Japanese folklore insists that Jesus Christ of Nazareth did not die on the cross in Calvary as so many books and legends foretold. No, that wasn't Jesus Christ at all. That was his brother, Usukiri, who was crucified in his place. Jesus Christ, however, escaped Roman persecution, ran east all the way to Japan, holding only his brother's ear and a lock of his mother's hair, which apparently is also buried in this same location up in North Japan. What is going on in the north of Japan? Are you guys good up there? But how does this insane claim fit into Christian theology and history? Well, they've got a workaround. Jesus didn't just suddenly decide, hey, I gotta check out the cherry blossoms, gonna head to Japan. Apparently, he's been there before. According to Shingo, Jesus, a massive weeb. Jesus supposedly came to Japan at 21 years of age to study theology, of all things. But when did he travel to Japan? Well, during his lost years, of course. The 12-year gap in the New Testament that's unaccounted for? Well, of course, Jesus was in Japan. He was hanging out, eating sushi, studying theology, and just living his cool weeb life. Apparently, Jesus started his adventure in Amano Hashidate before traveling up to Mount Fuji to meet a Grand Master. This Grand Master taught him not only the Japanese language, but also Japanese culture, history, and theology. At 33 years of age, Jesus decided he's seen enough of Japan and went back west through Morocco, of all places. And on his return back to Judea, he quoted the sacred lands he had visited and how wonderful Japan was. Was Jesus the original weeb? According to the guys up north, maybe. But here's the part that we all know. After Jesus was dunking on the Romans a little bit too hard, they decided, we've had enough of this, we're gonna crucify this boy. Jesus, being very sly and also cool and down with the youth, decided, no, my brother's going to take my place, and Jesus is gonna slip out and travel to Japan. So in this story, Jesus decides to escape persecution, run to Japan, leaves his little brother. Did Jesus have a little brother in the Bible? I don't think he did. I think they've literally just created a new character for this story. But either way, he left his little brother to take his place while Jesus fled through Siberia on foot mind you, all the way to Japan. He only carried 2 things on his adventure back to Japan, one being a lock of his mother's hair, his mother being the Virgin Mary, and of course, his brother's left ear. Supposedly, this long journey took 6 years and had him walking over 6,000 miles to get all the way back to the promised land of Japan. And it's here we found ourselves back to the beginning of the video, Jesus Christ, garlic farmer. He's decided to live his life out in exile in the village of Shingō, where he supposedly fell in love, had 3 children, died eventually of natural causes, but lived his entire life helping out the needy and the misunfortunate. This is a really bad story. I was raised in the church. I was raised pretty Christian. Am I Christian now? If my mother's watching, yes I am. But for those who are raised in the church or understand any part of Christianity knows the importance of him being crucified. It wasn't just he was crucified, end of story. It was he died for our sins, being crucified, and then rose again 3 days later. It was a whole miracle, you know? The implications of this story, I think, are far greater than those who created this story up north realize. This is a pretty pivotal point of Jesus' story. This is the whole death and resurrection cycle. If you remove Jesus from that part of the story, replace him with a new character, does that mean that guy came back from the dead after 3 days? Or was Jesus doing some kind of a bait and switcheroo where the brother died the permadeath, and then Jesus just popped out instead? You know what I mean? Like, it stops becoming this story of like faith and belief and resurrection, and it becomes more of a story of just like tricks and sleight of hand and deception. And I don't think that's what the whole story of Easter and such is about. I think you've kind of broken the story, guys from the village up north. I don't think any Christians are going to hear this story and go, oh my god, yeah, Jesus Christ garlic farmer, fuck yeah. But either way, that is the tale spun of Jesus Christ garlic farmer in the north of Japan. But what actually happened? In 1934, the head of the village of Herai, currently the village of Shingo, decided, we have a giant lake here, Lake Towada. We need to turn Lake Towada into a national park. And in doing so, we can bring more tourism, more prosperity to the region, and in connection to that, to our village. The head of the village invited Toyo Banzai, a Japanese painter, to survey the region. The village head was hoping to find some kind of connection between the lake and a section of the village called Mayogatai. In connecting the village to the lake, there was a chance they could create some kind of a national park which would overlap the village, thus bringing more prosperity to the village. Stay with me now. It's a genius plan. Now, Toya was a painter, but he was also just a little bit devious as he whipped out a manuscript claiming that this manuscript was passed down for generations in his family. And this wasn't any run-of-the-mill manuscript. It contained the history of Japan before even the reign of Emperor Jimmu. If true, this would be an incredible find and an amazing thing to keep at the village. But the manuscript was later deemed to be a hoax. Surprise, surprise. If you look into the manuscript, it is very much just a Japanese glaze fest. It claims that Moses, Confucius, Jesus Christ, and even Mencius trained in Japan. In the summer of 1935, a different individual surveyed the village, a man called Kiyomaru Taguchi. He claimed he discovered the grave of Jesus Christ in the village of Herai. Not only did he discover the grave of Jesus Christ, he also discovered a bunch of documents, ancient manuscripts, and secret text connected to Jesus Christ. The claims in these documents were that Jesus Christ came over to Japan for 12 years to study in Japan before going back to the West and spreading Christianity. This, surprise, surprise, was utter horseshit. I can't stress enough how utterly ridiculous these claims are. When Takeuchi brought these claims up to the villagers, even the villagers were surprised, for they had no history of Christianity in the village. It was a very confusing claim to come from Takeuchi. You gotta remember, this is also 1935 Japan. Anti-Western sentiment was at a peak, so people weren't happy with these claims and did not want to be connected with any sort of Western religions. The manuscript was also eventually lost and burnt in Tokyo during the World War II raids. So verification of this secret manuscript is impossible. I'm not some kind of a big historian lawyer, but I can tell you, I think this is fucking bullshit. This is nonsense. The site was completely forgotten about until the 1970s, where Japan was experiencing an occult boom. There was suddenly a massive interest in ghost schools, goblins, the supernatural, weird and interesting stories, alternative histories, aliens, and this was right up the alley of any occult lover. The villagers did not believe the story. Even up to the 1960s, they did not believe the story. There were no Christians in the village, there were no connections to Christianity or Jesus Christ. However, the village seems to be filled with shrewd business people, because although there was no connection in the village, hey, give the people what they want. If they want a spot to come and visit and buy stuff, the village is going to provide. So from June 1964 onwards, every single year, the village had a Jesus Christ Matsuri. That's right, a festival dedicated to Japanese Jesus. Traditional songs are sung at the Matsuri. Supposedly these songs are in Hebrew and are all about praising God. So did the village suddenly turn Christian? Is there a secret quiet village of Christians up in North Tokyo near a big lake? No, there is not. According to local residents, this festival wasn't created to Banzai, Christ Almighty. It wasn't created because there were just so many new Christians in the village, we had to do something for the Almighty. No, no, no. It was created to preserve the culture around the whole Jesus burial myth that had started in the village in the 1930s, and also to advertise the village as a tourist spot. And it just makes sense. Give the people what they want. We've discussed over-tourism before on my channel. Tiny villages in Japan, there's not a lot there for people to grasp onto when it comes to, you know, reasons to travel up there. Just because someone's traveling up to Sapporo doesn't mean they're also going to go all the way up north to the furthest point in Japan. People need reasons to latch onto, weird reasons to travel, and this is a pretty good marketing play from the village. But is there any truth to these claims? In reality, could this just be a really smart double bluff from the village, where they pretend like they're all not secret Christians in order to confuse the actual Christians, and the actual truth is Jesus Christ was really and truly a garlic farmer in North Tokyo at the end of his days? Well, probably not, but there are some pretty interesting links between the village and the West. The village does have some weird customs not seen anywhere outside of the village. Supposedly, there was a custom of drawing the cross on the heads of newborn infants. That custom is now supposedly lost to time, or that in the village in ancient times, men would wear toga-like robes similar to what you'd see in Palestine. The women would wear veils, and babies would be carried around in woven baskets similar to things you would see in the Holy Lands. According to believers, the cross, the toga, the veil, carrying around babies in woven baskets, all these teachings come from Jesus Christ himself. There were also some odd non-Japanese dialects used in the village as well, interesting ways of referring to one's mother and father in ways that aren't traditionally Japanese. Religious scholar and retired pastor Arimasu Kubo thinks that Shingo may have been settled by the descendants of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. And that's a pretty unlikely explanation, but the Israel government loves clutching at straws when it comes to giving them any sort of soft power positive image on the global stage. So they decided they're going to capitalize on this connection by giving the village a little plaque in Hebrew to say thanks for being best friends with us. They did, however, later on to say that this plaque was just to show friendship between Israel and Shingo, and is in no way giving a rubber stamp to the idea that Jesus was a garlic farmer and spent his last days in this tiny village in northern Japan. Another theory, and in my humble opinion probably the most likely theory, is that there are secret Christians living in the village up in North Japan. These were probably missionaries that came to the country around the 1500s and just kind of couldn't leave. If you've seen the movie Silence, you understand how persecuted Christians were at this time, especially missionaries. So it makes sense that they would have to hide out in locations where hopefully the Japanese government couldn't get to them. A lot of these practices probably came from missionaries coming over, teaching the locals about these practices, but also keeping them very quiet. There is very much possibly a Christian grave up in North Japan, but it's probably the grave of a missionary who came over during the 15 or 1600s. And for those thinking, why do they have to hide their Christianity? Missionaries were tortured. It was a massive thing. We're talking like hung by their toes, hung up on crucifix and put out in the ocean to drown. They really tortured these guys. Burned, beheaded, beat up. Like, it's a serious thing. Once again, you want a pretty good movie on this? Watch Silence or read the book. It's pretty graphic, it's pretty gruesome. Did Jesus escape Roman persecution, run to the north of Japan, and live out his days as a garlic farmer until the ripe old age of 106 years old? I'm gonna say no. Is it a really entertaining story that for some reason have spun out of control and the village has used it as some kind of weird PR campaign? Yeah, that generally just makes more sense. Am I offended? No, why would I be? It's pretty entertaining. Are other Christians offended? I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below if you found this story to be offensive in any way. Should they make an anime about this? I'm gonna say no, it sounds pretty boring. Hey, they made an anime about a fucking vending machine. Seems that the Japanese anime space needs ideas, so go for it. Jesus Christ Garlic Farmer, coming in 2027. I do thoroughly enjoy a weird story from Japan, and I hope you guys do too. Guys, if you're liking these videos, leave a like, leave a comment, hit the subscribe button, and let me know what you'd like to see next. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. Jesus Christ, Garlic Farmer.